Welcome to Global Policy Cast, a podcast which opens the inner workings of international governance through conversations with those who have shaped policy from insight to impact. Hosted by Insights International with its co-founder Arpit Chaturvedi and Suresh Kumar, a career civil servant with nearly 40 years of implementing policy on the ground. Global ideas, real governance. Welcome to Global Policy Cast.
He's a poet and he heads California's most prominent agriculture university. Join us as Mr. Suresh Kumar and I sit down with Dr. Saúl Jiménez-Sandoval, president of the Fresno State University, California. Now, California is one of the chief agriculture producing states in the United States of America, beyond just being a tech hub. And President Saúl Jiménez-Sandoval grew up on a farm. His father was a farmer. But now he leads the Fresno State University that brings communities, farmers, and businesses together to innovate on agriculture. They're really doing things that a consulting firm would take millions of dollars to do. In his discussion, he delves into how a university is a great capacity center for the society to transform something as real as agriculture. If you're curious about how it actually works, listen on into this episode of Global Policy Cast. Right. Thank you so much, President Jimenez-Sandoval, for joining the Global Policy Cast and having this discussion with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the honor.
President Sandoval, please tell us a little bit about your role at the Fresno University and, in general, the role of a university president, because since a lot of our audience is based in South Asia, the university president as a position is very different in South Asia than it is in the US. So please tell us a little bit about it and tell us briefly about how you came into this position.
So I just a little bit about me. I grew up in the region. I came to the Central Valley of California at the age of 10 from Mexico. And then I went away for college, and then I came back as a professor. I taught about 15 years in the classroom, and then I became the dean, and then I became the provost, and then I became the president, all within the same university and all within the same region in which I grew up. So the job, I'm going to put that in air quotes, of president for me, it's actually a life mission for me. I'm giving back to the region that saw me grow and that, allowed me so many opportunities. And I see my students in the same potential as well. So with that, the role of president is all comprehensive at Fresno State. Fresno State has about 24,500 students, roughly a little bit close to 25,000, actually. We are a comprehensive university in the Central Valley of California. Within that, we impact the world's food supply because the region produces about 25% of the world's food supply. So it's a very rich agricultural region that has a long history of producing this type of level of food for the region and the world. So within that, then, my role here is everything. Anything and everything that happens within the university returns to me in a direct or indirect way. I am the chief fundraiser, so that means that I go out and I advocate for the university, for supporters to support Fresno State financially. I am the main person who represents Fresno State to our elected officials. That would be in Sacramento or in DC or also within the region as well. Yes. And I'm also in charge of academics. The provost is here with me, but he's in charge of the academic side of the house. But overall, anything that happens within the university reverts back to me in quite a direct way. In terms of student success, I'm responsible for my students as well. If my students are doing well, that's great. If my students, have challenges or opportunities that we need to encounter, I'm also responsible for making sure that processes and resources are being put appropriately to the best use. So data is really important for a president these days. We have all the data in the world, at our fingertips. But at the same time, I think a president, in my case, is going to be an effective president or a rector, within the other context, if the person actually actualizes the data. We know the data is there, but what are we doing about it? And for me, and I'll end, with this part of the question, the role of the president is one that has to continuously see where the university is at very specific times. And what we want to do is we want to say, we are doing really well here. How can we improve? We're not
Yes.
doing too well in these areas. What specific processes are we applying or are we taking on board? Or what ideas, what initiatives are we undertaking so that we can effectively move forward with trying out these ideas to see if they're going to solve the issues. If the issue is not resolved with some of the ideas that we have on, then we refine them, we put them aside if they're not working, and then we try other ideas. So it's
Yeah.
this constant journey of becoming and this constant journey of bettering or adapting or readapting. Now with AI, of course, it is about that more than anything. So yeah, I'll leave it with that. But the university president at a comprehensive university, it's really the focal point for
Mhm.
everything that happens within the university, and it is the focal point for representing the university to the region, as well as to the state government, as well as to the federal government as well.
No, thank you so much. And it sounds like this role has so many different parts to take care of. Could you tell us a little bit about, from an educational policy perspective, that how do state universities such as yours play a unique role, let's say, as compared to private universities in the state
Sure.
or generally?
So again, let's take the context of California. California is a very big state,
Yes.
and we are the most populous in all of the United States. Within the context of California, we are responsible for the central part of the region in a
Hmm.
very direct way. Within the region, we have about 90,000 graduates of Fresno State that are doing everything from sustaining businesses to healthcare to teachers. The teachers, for example, in the region, about 85% of the teachers in the region come from Fresno State. So
Hmm.
we are very directly invested in the education
Oh,
of the
wow.
region. And that's huge, right?
Yes,
So a
yes.
regional comprehensive university like Fresno State is going to be responsible for directly impacting the society of the region.
Sure.
The arts, for example, are important. So a lot of artists, we graduate a lot of artists from Fresno State, as
Hmm.
well as the economy of the region as well. So a university like Fresno State will have to be very much in tune with the industry partners to see what it is that they need from us, what type of
Yes.
graduates do they need from us in order to move ahead and in order to really impact the economic region that then impacts, of course, other parts of the United States. So within all of this, I think what's really important to know is that a comprehensive university that's regional, like Fresno State, has about a 95% acceptance rate.
Okay.
And I'll just let that settle, with your audience.
Yes.
95% acceptance rate means that we will accept a huge breadth and scope of students. We
Yeah.
will accept the best of the best with,
Yeah.
GPAs that are like exceedingly high
Yeah.
to other students who are, C level individuals who come to Fresno State also looking for an opportunity. What
Sure.
does that mean? It means that we are the gateway, literally the gateway, the door of opportunity
Hmm.
for students who will not be accepted by the privates,
Correct.
who cannot afford the privates, on the other hand, because we are actually quite an affordable institution.
Yes.
Comparatively speaking, we are the cheapest, the least expensive university across the entire United States of any state system. If you look at our tuition, it's $6,600 a year. Compare that to
Oh, very
Colorado,
affordable. Yeah.
very affordable. Compare that to Colorado or Texas or Florida or New York, they're all beyond $12,000 each.
Sure.
So we are literally this door of opportunity for our students that mostly are first generation students. So about
Yes.
65% are first generation students at Fresno State who come to us with big dreams and big talents, and we have to then invest all of our people power to make it happen so that they graduate and they become these
Correct.
leaders in the economy and in the society of the region as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Kumar. Yeah.
Do you agree that based on your experience of kind of interacting with such a large number of youth in the university. I'm sure they are from California and maybe some
Yeah.
other parts of US and other parts of the world also. Do you agree that there is increased interest of the younger generation in the making of public policies? If so, why is it happening?
I think we are seeing a shift in our young these days in that they want to know the reason why certain processes are in place. And our young populations nowadays are understanding that there is a structure that has been constructed by someone or someones that dictates public policy. Public policy does not exist in a vacuum. There's no sui generis, it does not just simply appear out of nothingness. Public policy is constructed by a group of individuals who are interpreting reality and are stating, we want to construct a process through which we will all come together and elevate the quality of life writ large for everyone. So within that, then I think what our young generations are finding out is that public policy is not stagnant. It has never been stagnant. It cannot be stagnant. It is a process of fluidity that must be assessed and reassessed because the world is changing on a constant basis. And if the world is changing on a constant basis, I think our young understand that in order to keep up with this changing world, public policy has to in turn respond to these very fast changing situations that we see nowadays. So I
But
think
President, do you think globalization, the proliferation of media,
yes,
particularly the social
absolutely.
media, they have a role to play in kind of motivating and encouraging the youth, younger generation about and guiding them about the public policies?
Absolutely. So I think what we are seeing today is this connection to each other that we have not seen before. When I was growing up in the US in the 1980s, I didn't know what was happening with other, young people in South America or in South Asia or in parts of Europe or parts of Latin America or parts of Africa. But nowadays, I think there is a sense of we're all sort of like all using the same phrases
Yeah.
because of social media. We're all using the same sort of like processes to present ourselves because of social media. And because of that, I think we are seeing how other people in other parts of the world think and act and live. And we are learning that, some elements from our own culture could potentially be changed because we see
Sure.
it somewhere, else that it might be potentially better. So I think we are learning from each other, and I see that the youth of today are more in tune with each other than we were ever in tune with each other within our own generation, when we were growing up. So I do believe that the role of social media has a role to play, but I think we need to be more intentional about it. I think right now it's this organic mass that consumes information continuously. And I think
Yes.
we need to be aware of what we want to create intentionally within our own communities by taking the best pieces from around the world and bringing them in so that we can all, live a better life together.
President, one of your strong area is agriculture. You
Yeah.
said it in your opening remarks as well as we've been talking about it, that Fresno University particularly gives greater emphasis on holistic agriculture education. What do you think is your major contribution to the state's California state agriculture policy or the agriculture policy of the United States of India? Because as you said,
Right.
California is contributing nearly 25% in the food requirements of the nation. You are largely export oriented. You are
Right.
contributing to water conservation, producing more crops and more agriculture produce with as less as possible water consumption and input consumption. The input efficiency of agriculture and water use efficiency of agriculture in California is said to be very high. What do you think is your major contribution in making of public policy and agriculture?
I think we are still in the process of contributing, to be honest with you, Mr. Kumar. I think what we are seeing is slowly the realization that the Central Valley of California is extremely unique and it's extremely precious, not only to the economy of California, but also to the rest of the nation and the world. We have seen many times in the politics of California that the power centers are usually not paying enough attention to the other areas of California. So if you're not in the Bay Area and if you're not in the LA area or any one of these metropolitan areas on the coast, for the most part, you are not considered, the part of the California that people think about. But I think recently we are beginning to see a certain level of appreciation for what the Central Valley produces, not only to the state, but also to the nation and the world. And within that, I think the contribution of Fresno State is to make people aware that we are a direct pipeline to national security. If you think about it, a strong nation is able to sustain itself moving forward solidly by feeding its people. If the
Yeah.
food becomes expensive, if the food becomes unavailable, all of a sudden you have hunger and all of a sudden you have riots, all over the place because people don't have enough to eat.
Yeah.
So the notion of food security as a national security issue, I think it's more and more relevant to these days. And I think the contribution of Fresno State directly has been to put this front and center to the state and to the federal government as well, that has a lot to invest in the region moving forward. We need to let people
But
know that without these incredible levels of food production that have taken decades to get here, more than 100 years we have been investing in technology and investing in higher production with less amount of resources. How do we how do we keep it going? Like the big challenge right now is, as you mentioned, water. Water is huge for us in the Central Valley. We had to fallow more than 100,000 acres last year because we didn't have enough water. And we could convert this land into solar farms and whatever else. But at the end of the day, you cannot eat solar,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of the day, if your food production is dependent on other countries, in this case, it would be dependent on countries south of us, Mexico, Chile, Argentina, Peru,
Yes.
Brazil, primarily, then we are going to be at the mercy of international markets and at the mercy of other people who are producing our food. So to go back to your question and succinctly, answer it, I believe that our contribution has been to present the importance of food production here in California for the state and for the nation as
Yes.
a national security issue more than anything.
But President, you would agree that one of the major issues, which is an issue even in India, we face is the most students who study agriculture, who opt for agriculture education in universities like the Fresno University or even our state agriculture universities, they do not go back to agriculture as an occupation. They do not continue with agriculture. What do you think needs to be done to make agriculture education more relevant to the modern day youth, at the same time retaining them in agriculture occupation?
So I think your question is it's fascinating because I grew up in a farm, and I left the farm when I went to university, and then my father after that sold the farm, and one of my brothers now has the farm. But in all of this, what happened is that I got disconnected from the farm completely, and I was invited to tour a tomato farm, and I grew up in a tomato farm
Okay.
myself, and we would grow cherry tomatoes, the small
Sure.
tomatoes
Yeah.
that have to be picked by hand and are quite good because you sell them at a pretty high price because you don't convert them into sauce and you don't convert them into all of these other types of food processed things. So in my mind, the farm of the 1980s where I grew up we would, take care of the plants. The vines would grow up, would grow tall, and then we would weave this line through it so that the vine would keep going up. And they were actually quite tall. So we
Sure.
would go and we would try to pick the salmon colored tomatoes as fast as possible because these are the ones that have the longer shelf life. So that was sort of like my idea of what a farm looks like today. And I went to a farm not too long ago, and it was dramatically different, like completely different.
Okay.
The idea of like, picking by hand and having these,
Oh, that's
tall,
all gone.
it's gone. It's completely
Wow.
gone, right? So, to your point, Mr. Kumar, I think what we need to do more than anything is we need to educate our students as to how food is being produced these days in the farm. We have an idea that the farm has, chickens and eggs and whatever else comes to mind, but that's no longer the case. The case now is that we are using incredibly high tech, innovative technology in the
Yeah.
farm. The farm is now this exciting place of innovation, food production that is leading us into food processing as well. How do we how do we create more? How do we grow more food
Sure.
and then not let it go to waste? A lot of
But
the food
President,
on
you would agree, but President, you would agree, the youth today is looking for what we call is white collar jobs. Can agriculture be really a white collar job?
I don't know that we are all looking for white collar jobs. Right now at Fresno State, for example, we have about 2,200 students. So about roughly 9% of the population of Fresno State is involved in agriculture. It comes from the agricultural college, the Jordan College. And I think what we are seeing is we are seeing a shift of some students who want to go back to the farm and want to go back to producing food and have a meaningful contribution. We are seeing some students, of course, who are highly interested in becoming high-powered attorneys and high-powered economic, business people and power brokers and whatever else. Yet at the same time, we also see this other side of our students who actually want to invest and want to go back. I'll give you an example. When I came in 2000, there was about 18% of my students were of Latino descent.
Hmm.
Now about 56% of my students are of Latino descent, just because of the demographics of the region, not because of recruiting or anything that we've done.
Sure.
Before, the Latino students were primarily concentrated in teaching arts and humanities, social sciences. Now you go to the agricultural college, the Jordan College of Fresno State, and you will see 56% of the Latino students are there in the college. Why? They came from the fields.
Sure.
They saw their parents working in the fields, but they want to go back to the fields, not as field workers, not as farm workers, but as people who are going to implement innovative processes to grow more food for the nation. So I think you're right in that there's a certain type of student who does not want anything to do with dirt and it was
Hmm.
nothing to do with dust and water and everything else. But there's these other students who are saying, we've become too modern, we've become too technologically,
Hmm.
embedded within our phones all day long. I would rather be in the farm producing
Yeah.
food innovatively than being an office from 8 to 5, going through the motions.
President Jimenez-Sandoval, my question to this is that no, this is from a developing country's perspective. That in many developing countries, agriculture tends to be a big priority, but the budgets that the governments, either federally or the state government, allocate for research or for universities is pretty little. And as a result, a thinking kind of ensues that okay, in limited budgets, it's probably a better idea to spend on other stuff related to agriculture, let's say giving farm subsidies or giving them the right sort of market access, etc., rather than investing in a university that'll do something to So the correlation between a university and agricultural progress is brought into question. What would you think about that? I know in California, the policy making tends to be a lot more enlightened, but if I were to pluck you out and put you in another state or another country, what would be your argument?
I think, there are many arguments, but I think what we need to realize is the following. There isn't another institution in either India or the United States that is able to fully and thoroughly invest in the issues that are facing industry today than the university. Why? Because the university has fully invested professors and fully bright, hungry students who want to make their mark in the world. We have this incredible potential of talent at the university with professors who have given their lives to research. And in the case of Fresno State, we are quite productive in applied research. We're not productive in theoretical research or, sort of like futuristic, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
If the industry needs something, the industry usually comes to Fresno State and says, we have an issue with this. Can you help us figure it out? So it is in that moment in which the experience of the professor with many years of experience and all of the research that professor has published comes in touch with the power and creativity of new thinking through the students that then are able to combine together their forces in order to come up with a solution. Let me give you just one example with that.
Sure.
We have a food processing plant nearby, and they came to us and they said, we have to cut the strawberry. We have to cut the top of the strawberry because we then have to wash it and then have to freeze it immediately in order to, ship it to the market. And in cutting the strawberry, we are using a water knife. So the water knife would go like this, and then the top would be off. So then our team got together. The team went to this plant. They studied everything, and then they came back and they said, you don't need to use water. You can use air. So you can use an air knife, and the air knife will be just as efficient in cutting off the top, because that's all we need, right? We need the top to be cut off from the strawberry, so that the strawberry can then be processed, so that the strawberry can be frozen and then shipped to the market. So in doing so, then this industry partner came to us. The students, the professor got together and said, just change the configuration of how it is that you want to solve the issue. Instead of using 500,000 gallons of water a year, which is that's a lot of water.
Yeah.
You can simply use air. And the energy that you use, the electricity that you use, is going to be comparable. So at the end, what do? You shift the mentality of, we've always done it this way. To go back to your point before, Mr. Kumar, of, the younger generations want to change policy because they understand that the sands are shifting right before our very eyes.
No, absolutely.
So that's a very direct value proposition of how it is that we impact industry in a very direct way. And only the university can actually have that. And for the price that is completely unbeatable.
Yeah. Like a private consultant would probably charge a lot for that sort of advice.
Quite a bit. But in this case, it's right, because on the one hand, what have you done? You have empowered students to learn, to research, to apply concepts.
Yes.
You have maintained the university, very strongly. And at the same time, of course, you have helped promote the vitality of that industry moving forward.
President, will you be able to give a figure? What percentage of your research is funded by the industry?
I'm not sure about percentages right now of the industry, but I know that in terms of grants, which is, either government or industry related, we have doubled the amount of grants under my presidency, almost doubled it. We were at 40-something million dollars, and now at the last time we were at $87 million in grant output. So this is our latest a grand output that we've had at Fresno State.
And you agree that value addition or agro industries or agriculture processing industry is a solution to redress most, if not all, the grievances farmers have that they don't get enough remuneration in the market.
Well, think about it, right? 100% agree with you. Because what happens is that let's go back to the mindset of the farmer, and I'm going to use my father as an example. My
Sure.
father would say the frost is over. Now we plant the tomatoes in the field, and then after that irrigate, take care of the tomatoes. The vines are going up. You're weaving through with this twine to sustain the vines up and whatever else. Summer comes, we pick the tomatoes, we sort them out, take them to the warehouse. The warehouse takes them in, ships them all over the world, and then that's it, right? Fall comes along, and then fall slows down a little bit, and then we get ready for tilling the land, making sure that the land the soil is healthy and everything else. Winter comes along, and then we start yet again with the greenhouses with the small. So it's a cycle, right? And the
Yes.
cycle repeats over and over and over and over and over. Now, that one farmer does not have the brain capacity to
Sure.
say, I'm going to invent this because I have a problem with it. But they do have the ability to reach out to me and say, we have an issue with this aphid, or we have an issue with nematodes, we have an issue with whatever it might be, water. Can you invest, right? People
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
If we give you the right resources, can you invest people power in helping us solve this issue? Well, that is brilliant.
Yep.
We have not had that before. And if you think of ancient civilizations such as the ones that you have there in India, right? If you had before a sort of like state investment in agriculture, because you knew, the very ancient civilizations knew that if the food was there, you were able to sustain the entire civilization moving forward. So I think we need to go back, to the questions that was presented before. We need to go back to a time in which we see the university as an active agent of change in regards to knowledge and in regards to agriculture specifically.
Absolutely.
You referred to, President, to Indus civilization and the Indian civilization. You see, agriculture at the time of Indus civilization was more diverse, was more sustainable.
Much
Do
more.
you think we have a lot to learn from the heritage? We have a lot to learn from the history, and history can be leveraged to make the policies more appropriate, more updated, more people-centric.
I think we can combine both areas. We can combine the wisdom that we saw back then, and we can also combine the knowledge that we currently have from what we've learned. I did a very brief history of the Central Valley, and when you look at the Central Valley of California, I came here in 1980, but when you do the history and in 1980, then I grew up with other kids going to school whose parents had 20 acres or 40 acres. One of our friends had 120 acres. And we thought that was like huge. Like we couldn't conceive 120 acres in our mind. We, had a small farm. We had about like 15 acres. And within that, we thought it was a lot of work. So in my mind, I couldn't even conceive what 120 acres would look like. Now, back then, we had individual families all controlling their own production, all moving forward with this is the rhythm of our farm, and this is what we're producing to the bigger economy of the Central Valley. Like fast forward to today, and what do we find? We do not find the small family farms. Very few individuals have the 20 or the 40 farms because what happened, as you said before, the sons and daughters grew up and they didn't want to farm. Other people want to farm, but these sons and daughters did not want to farm. And instead, then the parents grew old, and in growing old, the parents said, we're going to sell the farm. So then you have nowadays in the Central Valley, you have like 1,000, you have 5,000, you have 100,000 acre families with 100,000 acres. So what is the good? What's so good about this? Let's go for the good and the bad, right?
Sure.
What's bad is that these are monocultures.
Mm-hmm.
We are producing very select few crops that are going to give us the highest command of the dollar.
Yeah.
That's not good because we don't have the rich variety of hybrids that we had before,
Yeah.
right? That's not good. What is good, though, is that because we are managing now a mega huge farm of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 acres,
Mm-hmm.
we are able to centralize all of the best processes for the best yield in that land. That's good because
Yes.
now we are producing the most amount of food from that one land that
Mm-hmm.
we have ever produced in the history of the Central Valley. So, so good and bad, right? So I think the issue here is going to be as the world's population grows and grows and grows higher and higher, how do we maintain the capacity to feed the world within the current limited and more less land that's agriculturally produced? So I think
But
it
you
will
would
be that
agree,
in the future.
but President, you would agree, you are agreeing, in fact, that history has a role to play in policy making.
Absolutely. Yes,
But
100%.
if you analyze the structures of policy making, the institutions of policy making, there is hardly any role assigned to the historians. Historians are not involved in policy
No,
making
not at
at
all.
any stage in the government. Why is it? How should we do it?
Yeah, I think let me give you an example of what happens in the Central Valley of California. The Central Valley is neither Republican nor Democratic. So we're neither
Mm-hmm.
right nor left. We're both.
Yeah.
And it flips.
Sure.
It voted for Obama, and then after that, it voted for Trump, and then it voted for Biden, and then it voted for Trump again. So it flips back and forth, right? Because California is such a blue of blue state. It is a
Sure.
democratic state and is majority democratic state. Oftentimes we receive legislation that comes from Sacramento and impacts the region in an agricultural way, in a pretty profound way. Many times, to go back to your question, we are not consulted on best practices in the farm. We are not consulted on past processes of historical knowledge that we have here
Yeah.
because we are not dictating policy in the grander scheme of things within the state. We are impacted by policy that comes to us and becomes law. And then because
Yeah.
it becomes law, then we have to move forward with it. So I think more and more we will see that the more we legislate and the more we implement policy without proper knowledge and without proper past historical wisdom, I think it will impact us in a very negative way moving forward.
But what should be done to remedy the situation and involve more experts and more historians in making of policies to
Yeah,
build upon the historical
yeah,
wisdom?
yeah.
What
Let
should
me
be
give
done?
you let me give you just a very clear answer to that. We need to speak up. And we need to speak up. Before we had the Maddie Institute, with which you have been involved, Mr. Kumar, and the Maddie Institute is a bipartisan institute that is heavily supported by Fresno State. They are
Mm-hmm.
an independent entity, but we heavily support the Maddie at Fresno State. So I became president, and when I became president, I noticed that the Maddie was focusing on general policy
Mm-hmm.
overall. Everything about policy would go through that. And I told the director back then, we need to create an ag policy center within the Maddie
Yeah.
because we cannot compete as a region with general policy with the LA region. About
Sure.
40% of the votes are in the LA region for the entire state of California.
Okay.
Nobody can overcome that block.
Yeah.
We cannot compete against the Bay Area. Again, we cannot compete in terms of general policy, but we can compete and we are the leaders in ag policy.
Mhm.
So if a legislation is coming our way that is going to adversely impact the region, the Ag Policy Center of the MADI is
Sure.
going to analyze it in economic and social terms and then send it in high-level talking points to the legislators. What does that mean? It does not mean that we send a 30-page report dense with information and dense with a lot of narrative,
Yes.
because they're not going to read it.
No.
That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
What we will do, though, is we will send high-level talking points with graphics
Yeah.
that really tell the story of the impact that is negative or positive of this very particular piece of legislation. So what we need to do is we need to communicate in a very direct way. If you legislate me this way, the impact will be economic in these terms, social in these other terms, and at the end, you will impact this food supply that is vital for the economy of California, the United States, and the world.
And that's actually a good tip for all of the policy students, that the big reports are never read. You got to condense evidence into very small digestible pieces. So, yeah.
Right, like with visuals, right? Because now
Yes.
what has happened with social media, to go back to your point before, we have shifted from the writing to the visual. Now
Yes.
most of it is visual.
Yes.
So I want to see it. I want to see a graphic of the impact. I don't want to
Yes.
be told in a paragraph what the impact is going to be. I want to see, the pie charts. So I want to see comparative issues that are going to be presented in a very graphic way to me.
President, I can give you an example. Once I was in a policy discussion with the state premier and the Prime Minister of India, and the state premier made a detailed presentation on the water issues and water disputes we, the state of Punjab, had with other states. And after detailed discussion for about half an hour, the Prime Minister of the country says, give me a short sentence. What do you want? What should be done?
Yeah.
And the premier looked at me, and I just scribbled 1.5 sentence. And you won't believe that 1.5 sentence is the water policy, or the policy to settle interstate water disputes today between the state of Punjab and the neighboring state. So
Good
it's
job.
always better to be brief, concise, and to the
That's
point,
right.
and you
That's
can
right.
hit the nail in a smaller way, that with a smaller effort.
Yeah.
That's always done. But tell me, President, public universities and institutions of higher education traditionally have had a greater role in policy making. Most governments, whether in India or elsewhere, they've been consulting the senior people, they've been consulting the research and findings of research findings in many important institutes of higher education, Institute of Science and Education in India, the other many major universities, both public and privately funded universities. What do you think is the role of universities in policy making in US?
I think the role of the university, specifically within California, and I'll speak within the region as
Sure.
well, is to present very clear and understandable, digestible information that makes sense. What we need to understand is that oftentimes a legislator is creating policy because they need to show the public that they're being busy, or that they're being productive, or that they're being elected has had a good result. So they need to create policy, they need to move policy ahead so they can go back to their constituents and say, see, I passed this bill. This is a good bill for all of you.
Yeah.
So within that, then we find ourselves in a situation in which the policymakers are forced, literally forced, to create more policy and more policy in order to go back and justify their elected status. And of course, in doing so, what do? They get reelected. Because if you have passed legislation, that means that you're good at influencing policy. In this cycle that never ends, we need to be very keen about separating the emotion from the logical part of it. Sometimes the legislator is going to want to move a piece of legislation because that piece of legislation is being moved by the emotional part of it, not by the logical part of it.
Yeah.
And we need to address that. If that emotional part is going to impact us in a negative economic or social way, we need to show in very clear ways, very clear data, what the negative impact will be, what the cost is going to be in real dollars, or what the cost is going to be in real people as well. And once you do present these very clear messages to them, of saying, this is what the information is that my researchers have done, then we need to engage in a bigger issue about what is the need for this specific legislation? Is there a need, or can we please redirect it in another way? And we need to just be frank about it. I think sometimes we tend to think that in presenting information, we're being whatever, not collaborative. But it's actually the opposite, because our responsibility is to actually promote very clear information rather than just sit on the information and then move along.
But do you think President system allows you to speak the truth?
Sorry, I saw.
I'll repeat my question. Do you think you said that university and the experts should present the truthful information to the policymakers? But do you think system allows you to speak the truth?
I think there is a space for that. Yeah. Let me
There
recover.
is a space for that.
Yeah, please.
But can that space be increased? Can the universities and institutes of higher education be enabled in a more systematic way through some reforms that they have a definite role in policy making, that they are allowed to speak the truth, that they are allowed to present the information that means a lot for making the policies more relevant and more purposeful?
All right. I think we are beyond the point in which a university can actually impact in a very profound way policy. We can do it in small increments, but not in a bigger, impactful sort of way. I don't think we can.
I'll just restate the question in a different way. How does politics impacts the policy? There's something said that the politics of policy making, and people say that policies are generally made by politicians and they are governed by the political ideologies, the political imperatives. They are not governed by the imperatives of growth. They are not governed by the findings of research. They are not contextual. They are not based on contextual expectations. So it's the politics which impacts more the policy making than anything else. What's your take on that?
I think there is a space for the university to play in presenting very clear information that is able to inform the policymakers. But I don't think we are in a position to force or to fully impact policymakers in a very deep way. I think what we find ourselves in is a situation in which not all, because we have some policymakers that are truly champions, like phenomenal champions, and they will do the right thing regardless. But we do have some policymakers who are so invested in getting reelected that at the end, even when faced with very clear information, they will not pivot and they will not shift. So to your point and to your question, I don't think the university has the power to say you are completely wrong and you're doing it all wrong. We are dependent on the policymakers. That's the other thing, right?
Yes.
In that Fresno State on an annual basis receives 40% of its funding from Sacramento. So we have to be diplomatic in the way that we also present this information. We have to be diplomatic in the way that we say this is right and this is wrong. It's a complicated issue nowadays because we don't have a secure funding that comes our way that guarantees a certain level of funding moving forward.
But President, you just said that the provincial government, the government of California, Sacramento gives you 40% of your financial requirements. Likewise, I also have information that some grants comes to you from the federal government. But do you think the release of grant to the university, whether by the government in Sacramento or whether by the government in Washington, is guided by the politics, not by the requirements, not by the laws, not by the regulations, not by the demand of the university? It is
I
more
think
politics. It's more
I think there is
politics.
politics. No, I think there is a lot
That's
of
what.
politics. But I think in the grander scheme of things, we are also responsible for showcasing the importance of our universities. Fresno State is part of a bigger system, which is the California State University system.
Yeah.
And within that, we as a system, I graduate 6,100 students a year from Fresno State.
Sure.
The entire system graduates about 125,000 students a year.
Sure.
What we need to do is we need to connect these graduates directly to the economy of California and the economy of the regions of California that are being impacted by that. So I think it's also a two-way street, right? It's not just that the funding of the institutions is being guided by politics. I think we also need to put into all of this equation, how is it that we, the universities, showcase the value, the economic value of our degrees out in the workplace, and then justify that 40% funding that comes our way as well.
Yeah.
But on the contrary, Mr. President, on the contrary, there is always an argument that jobs, the economic activity should be delinked from the degrees. The degree may have value, may not. It is the merit which has value, which is the merit which has economic value. So what's your take on delinking the degrees from jobs?
Sorry, ask the question again. I'm not sure that I quite understand it.
I said you said it, the degree has to have a value and it has to have an economic value. But
Sure.
there's another school of thought which says that degrees should be delinked from the jobs. Degrees, it's not the degrees which should have or which always have the value. It is the merit in a person, the
Sure.
capability or
Yeah.
the ability of a person to
Yeah.
deliver value. Now, do you think the degrees should be delinked from jobs?
I think what we need to look at degrees are formal training that a student receives at the university that provides them with the tools necessary to invent, reinvent, tool and retool themselves continuously throughout their life. The degrees that we provide represent this modality of thought that is adaptive and that reassesses everything before them so that they can adapt and readapt to the changing economic shifts of the future and of the present as well. So to go back to your question, what we invest in is we don't invest in knowledge. We absolutely provide knowledge to our students,
Sure.
but that's not the point of departure for it. We don't pride ourselves in saying this one student learned, the formula for whatever it might
Sure.
be, or the theory for this and whatever else. No, what we are doing is we are investing in wisdom of the future. And what we are doing is we are investing in this individual who will be able to be an agent of change. And this agent of change cannot be an agent of change if she or he sticks to the box of this learned part of material that we have presented. They
Yeah.
need to learn from us, go into the world, apply it, and then do what? Unlearn in order to become more productive and more creative in their solutions that they present.
Absolutely. And last question over there is that with the advent of artificial intelligence, and I don't necessarily agree with that argument, but there was a time where people said that, oh, since you have the internet, you have Google, etc., you won't need to go to college, and that didn't turn out to be true. But then there's another wave that argues that to be a useful person in the society, all of that wisdom that you need can come from AI, and you may not need traditional degrees or universities to be the wise and useful person in the society that you're supposed to be to survive. What do you think about that?
I go back to the classroom. It's 1991, and I'm in the classroom learning about everything, and this concept of email starts to like float around. By the time 1995 comes along, I have an email account, and I'm so proud of it. And I'm
Sure.
sending emails to my friends and whatever else. Fast forward to 2000, 2001, and Wikipedia comes along. And I'm in the classroom and I tell my students, do not use Wikipedia. Wikipedia is evil. It
Yes.
is not controlled by anybody. We don't know if it's actual factual truth or not.
Sure.
And I prohibit you from using Wikipedia to write, your papers or your analyses or like whatever
Indeed.
else, or to look up theory, right? Fast forward to 2026, and I use Wikipedia on a daily basis.
Yeah. It's
So nowadays, we have 1/3 of my faculty are full adapters of AI.
yeah.
They are adapting AI in the classroom. They're adapting AI in their research. They are
Mm-hmm.
giving my students very clear instructions on how to apply AI, how to prompt AI, how to engineer the right
Sure.
questions so that you get really strong answers back. And at the same time, how to be weary and how to be discerning of the answers that AI is giving you back, and not just take it for granted that AI is telling you 100% the truth or whatever else, right?
Sure.
So we are beginning to use it as a tool that is able to minimize the amount of work
Yeah.
that is out there.
Yeah.
Before, in order for me to write a paper, I would have to go to the library. At the library, I would have to look all the articles. I would have to go to the articles, certain whatever else. Right now, everything is here.
Yes.
So I have more time to do more. That's all that means. At the end of the day, I have to write the paper. The AI chatbot is not going to write it for me.
Yeah.
So I think the 1/3 of that early adopter is championing everything and saying, we're moving forward, we're adapting, we're learning how to use this new tool. The second part of it is the other 1/3, they're thinking about it and
Sure.
they're curious, and maybe they've dabbled in it like once or twice, and they've looked at, I don't know, tell me the best flights for traveling, somewhere, and
Yes.
whatever else. Something very, very applicable, right? Very like it's very like it's here, it's now.
For
And then
sure.
the other 1/3, never, never AI. I will not touch it. I will
Ever.
not go near
Yeah.
it. It sucks the soul out of the human and whatever else, right?
Yeah.
Um, it is a transition that I saw before. I came here in 2000, and I had my computer, and there were still professors in my department who were using typewriters.
Oh, wow.
2000,
But one last thing, like,
retired, and now we're all using computers. So I think
Yeah.
that will happen in the future as well. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
but President, one last thing, knowing jolly well how the policies are made, what's happening to the policy making in the world or all across the nations, how the youth is becoming more and more alert to policy making. What would you suggest to one or two reforms that should be made to make the policies more attractive, to make the policies more easy to understand, to make the policies more contextual and relevant in the world which is more open, which is more transparent, in the world which is aspiring to gain from the globalization paradigm of growth?
I think we need to become aware of the power of one. And oftentimes, we often look to the pyramid of power for change, meaningful change, and it's not going to come. If we expect, the leaders to all of a sudden have an epiphany about what changes we want to see in the world, these changes will not come our way. I think what I see in our youth nowadays is that they have become aware that if you are well informed and if you have a good idea, you are able to get traction and support from others that will help you implement some change or inform change or possibly communicate change to someone who can do it.
Yeah.
And I think more and more we tend to think of ourselves as just being part of one generic individual that is not able to really impact change around us. But I think what we have seen is that when one person is committed, when one person says to themselves, I'm going to make this happen and I'm going to get it done and I'm going to get people to see it my way, when the idea is an idea that elevates the quality of life of a lot of people or of the unit, for the most part, that individual will get a lot of attention and a lot of support. When I go to Sacramento, and I go to Sacramento to advocate for Fresno State, for funding for Fresno State, they see me as one. He's just here. Of course he's here. He's the president of Fresno State. That's his job to do. He needs to advocate for funding for Fresno State. However, if I go to Sacramento and I bring a student, and then I bring an industry partner with a lot of economic power in the region, all of a sudden I'm not alone. All of a sudden they have to, give a step back and say, oh, wait a minute. He's here with a student, which is great. That's where like all the joy and all of the power and all the hope comes out.
Yes.
And he's here with, I think I know her. I think I know him. And usually these individuals will also tend to be heavy political players who tend to donate.
Sure.
Right? So let's put another layer into this. I go to Sacramento, I have my student, I have my regional leader as well with me. And at the same time, I have asked 3,000 people to write a simple message that simply says, do not cut the CSU.
Yeah.
Do not cut Fresno State. Support Fresno State. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
Reach out to your elected official. All of a sudden, I'm one person with a regional leader, with a student, and 3,000 people who have written an email or a message or a letter or a postcard or whatever.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, that one individual, that one legislator is going to say, oh, wait a minute, I better pay attention. Because he's connected to all of those people who wrote to me. And he's also connected to that regional leader who's bringing in that student.
That's such a masterful lesson in policy advocacy. So thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, to go back to your point, though, I think we need to become aware of the power of one. If I communicate, if I educate, if I ask, and if I receive something very powerful my way, then I have the responsibility to say, I'm here not for myself. I'm here representing all of this institution that's behind me that then contributes to the region in a very profound way.
So what you're basically saying, President, is that the collective action and collective effort can make the policies better.
100%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
100%.
Thank you. On that very enlightening note, we will close our conversation for today. Thank you so much, President Jiménez-Sandoval, for joining us for this conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Global Policy.
It's been an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, President. I'll see you in June. I'll be in Fresno in June, and I'll see you there. Thank you.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.